with us because we're also joined by our guests, Maulana Ul Hassan Qasmi and PKD Nambiar. Coming across to you, Maulana sir, what do you feel about the verdict that is impending today, especially when it comes to the fact that earlier the court has said that the hijab is not an essential part of Islam or an essential practice of Islam? How did you view that?
No, this is the hijab is the essential practice in Islamic faith, and this is the matter how to interpret the Quran, and the interpretation of the Quran is the right of the Islamic scholars, not anybody else. So nobody who is irrelevant to Islam is not nor has no knowledge, proper knowledge of religion, Islam. So we cannot claim that Islam is the hijab is not the compulsory practice in Islamic faith. This is wrong. Hijab is part of Islam. Hijab is practiced in Islam from its very beginning, and it is essential in Islamic. Number two, whatever the court's verdict will be, should be acceptable to all. After all, the law of the land is prime to every Indian citizen.
मौलाना जी, आप बिल्कुल ठीक बात कर रहे हैं, आप सही बात कर रहे हैं. I appreciate and respect the fact that despite the religious beliefs, you believe that the law of the land takes precedence, and that is what should be important. But I want to ask you, hijab by the Karnataka High Court was held to be a cultural practice. अब इस देश में भी कई जगह हैं जहां पर बहुत सारी दूसरी कम्युनिटीज होती हैं जहां लोग अपना सर ढकते हैं या घूंघट लेते हैं, मगर ये सारी चीजें मौलाना साहब हमारे सरकारी स्कूलों में, कॉलेजेस में, सरकारी इंस्टीट्यूशंस में, इन सब में अलाउ नहीं किया जा सकता. हिजाब हो या बुर्का हो या कोई और भी तरीका हो कपड़े पहनने का, हर रीजन के हिसाब से, हर देश के हिसाब से, इवन इस्लामिक कंट्रीज में अलग अलग तरीके से एक ड्रेस कोड फॉलो किया जा सकता है. कोई यूनिफॉर्म पैटर्न नहीं है. तो आप इसको एक इसेंशियल रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस मौलाना साहब कैसे बोल सकते हैं?
No, when we can have bindi, when we can have the pagdi turban in school, purely Islamic practice. So question also arises, why can't we have hijab? That is not complete hijab. Only covering the head. And this covering the head can be as par with the dress color. Your hijab, your covering scarf should be with the par according to dress color. So there should be no problem.
But Maulana Sahab, I'll come back to you. Deshratna Nigam sir, I also want you to come into the discussion. And I argue here that any kind of prescribed dress code that tells women to dress in a certain way is a regressive practice. If women are not willingly choosing it, whether it's to wear a hijab or to not to wear a hijab, can these kind of dress codes prescribed by religions be allowed in state-run institutions? And can every practice be protected under the essential religious practices test? Your argument, sir.
No, Shilpa. In fact, the answer lies in your question itself. The fact remains that Anusha, I'm so sorry. No, I was told Shilpa.
Yes.
Anusha, in fact, India is a secular country, and Indian schools and other institutions are run by certain well laid down rules, regulations, and various other laws that are those that govern these institutions. In fact, the Karnataka government did not ban hijab inside the classroom. It allowed the schools to have a dress code to maintain uniformity and peace and order, and also to bring unity and to have that same standards for everybody. So it is not the government that has banned, it is the schools under their own institutional freedom and under their own fundamental rights that they enjoy, which we call institutional rights, prescribed a dress code inside the classroom. Hijab is not banned. Hijab is allowed to be worn outside the classrooms in those institutions. So these are the two fundamental differences that we have. Now, fundamental rights, as you know, being claimed by the other side is that they are absolute. They are not absolute. Reasonable restrictions can be brought in, and there are certain laid down procedures and principles on this aspect. Public order, discipline, all these are a part of that, restrictions and fundamental rights. And institutional fundamental rights have been given precedence over individual rights so far as the educational institutions are concerned. So they have no absolute right. Secondly, let me raise a very important question. Music and dance is prohibited in Islam, but all the Muslims do it. Are they not Muslims? Because it is not considered as an essential practice. Similarly, hijab, let me quote from Quran itself. It is a wall of separation, 746, a curtain, 3353, just a wall of separation, 41:5, 42:52, and 17:45. Hiding, it is known as hiding, that is hiding the non-believers from believers so that they don't see Allah, 1914, and preventing and denied access to God, 83:15. The word used in Quran is jilbab, which is a long flowing dress to cover the body, and especially it was done at the time when early morning the women used to go in an Islamic country for their morning rituals. Then the men used to look at them and trouble them. In fact, some of them were raped also. So Prophet Muhammad said, in order to prevent them, you should cover, it was not hijab covering head, it was a long flowing dress, which they called it jilbab, which is given in 33:59 also. So that was the essential, and there the entire issue arises is about the dignity of a woman, where the entire onus has been put on the women's shoulder to protect themselves, and the onus actually lies on the men not to look with those bad eyes or to do anything bad. So therefore, this patriarchal mentality of slavery has to go. The onus lies on men, not on women, to cover themselves, to improve their behavior. The men have to improve their behavior. So that is the entire, rationale behind this whole issue. And in the courts, when they realized, in the court, in the Supreme Court, when the pro-hijab lobby realized that the essential practice argument will not suffice, then they shifted to the fundamental rights. Then the fundamental rights are not absolute. One knows that. Secondly, the High Court also noted the fact that these were not natural protests. These were orchestrated and manufactured protests, and they said some strict action should be taken. That aspect has also been noted by the High Court. So all these things are very, very important.
So I would request you to stay with us, and because you're bringing us all these important points, and I appreciate your perspective. Also want to thank my colleagues for joining us with all those details. I would request all of you to stay with us because we do have to slip into a